Good morning, first grade. I hope everybody is having a great day so far. Today, we are going to continue our work with That Bookwoman, and we're going to take a look at a informational video, a short video clip together about pack horse librarians. And that's what the type of librarian that we read about in That Bookwoman was called, the people that would bring books to some of those remote locations on horses. And what I'd like you to do while we're watching the video together is think about how the video connects to the story. So what connections, what do you notice that the similarities between what we watch and hear in the video to what we've read in the book? And then what we'll do after that is actually take a look at the author's note at the end of the book, and we'll compare the author's note to the book. So I don't know, different classes use different symbols. I know that I've always used this symbol to show when we make a connection. We link our fingers. So you take your pointer and thumb and then link them together. And that's always been a symbol that I've used in class to show that, hey, I have a connection. So while you're watching this video, while we're watching it together, if you make a connection, go ahead and feel free to make the symbol for or whatever symbol you use for making a connection. Okay, so let's check this out, see if this will work, or we can watch it together on the video.
Thousands of people lived in the crooks and hollows of Kentucky's mountains. Without newspapers, telephones, or radios, they were almost totally isolated from the outside world. Since there were no paved or even gravel roads, the only way in was by foot, horse, or mule. In 1930, a flooded Ohio River, diminishing need for coal, and the Great Depression led to extreme poverty in the state of Kentucky. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was searching for new ways of assisting the American people. In 1933, he created the New Deal Relief Program, which led to the Works Progress Administration 2 years later. These programs rejuvenated education, the workforce, and public services. However, many projects were seen as men's work. What jobs were there to employ women? First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt stepped up to advocate for women's employment. Little did she know, Elizabeth Fullerton was also advocating for women and proposed a library extension program called the Pack Horse Library Project. Librarians would deliver books and magazines to mountain families and remote schools, on horseback. After all, about 63% of the residents of Kentucky were without access to public libraries. The horses and librarians would promote literacy and community through Neighbors Helping Neighbors. These librarians, most of whom were young, working mothers, were brave, determined, and dedicated members of the communities they served. The life of a pack horse librarian was challenging. They were paid a mere $28 per month. All of the reading materials were donated, and they paid for the rental of their own horses, traveling over 100 miles per week in all types of weather. While many community members looked forward to a visit, not all were literate, able to read and write. Therefore, part of the librarian's job was to promote literacy through read-alouds. As the project continued, the demand for books and magazines grew. Librarians traveled beyond the southeastern counties of Kentucky. By 1937, over 60,000 books were circulated each month. More than 26,000 families were served, and over 155 public schools were visited. It was estimated over half the state was served by the Pack Horse Library Project. The demand always exceeded the supply. Books for women and children were popular, as well as many magazine titles. What types of magazines or books would you request? Would you donate books to help expand the efforts? By the project's conclusion in 1943, almost 1,000 pack horse librarians had served 1.5 million patrons in 48 Kentucky counties. However, nothing would replace the role of the pack horse librarians in eastern Kentucky until 1957, when bookmobiles became more common. To learn more, check out That Book Woman or Down Cut Shin Creek at your local library.
Okay, so as you were watching that, you probably noticed quite a bit of similarities between the video and That Book Woman. So let's talk about some of them. Share. Okay, 1 second. Trying to make it all work with the audio and the video. So let's take a look at our uh, some of the connections. So I know some of the things that I noticed in the video, and you can see if you noticed the same thing. They were talking about the same area, the Kentucky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains. That was where Cal's family lived as well. I also noticed that they said in the video that the people living in this area were isolated or almost completely isolated from other parts. And I know that the word remote was kind of like blinking in my head. I was thinking about the word remote, that, Cal's family also lived in a remote location. I also noticed that, it was, these women that would travel by horse, to deliver books for free, and the books were donated, which is exactly what happened in That Book Woman. The book woman came on her horse to share books with Cal. They also talked about that certain people that lived in this area at that time were what they called illiterate, meaning they couldn't read or write. So that made me think of and make connections with Cal as well. And that, eventually he did learn to read, and, we'll talk about that more. But that was something else that I noticed a major connection. They also said that they would travel in all types of weather on the video. And I know that that was, definitely mentioned in That Book Woman, that, they were surprised and she came and she, just slid the books through the crack because she was worried about Cal's family getting cold. But she was, braving the cold weather to deliver the books. So I know that was, I also noticed that that was similar. Okay, so let's now take a look at the author's note, and I will pull it up here. It's a little smaller here to see, but I'm going to read it from my copy of my book, and just kind of keep the video in mind that we just watched, and keep the book in mind as we listen to the author's note. This story was inspired by the true and courageous work of the pack horse librarians, who were known as bookwomen in the Appalachian Mountains of Kentucky. So I know I'm making connections right now, right away from the first part of it. The Pack Horse Library Project was founded in the 1930s as part of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's Works Progress Administration in order to bring books to remote regions where there were few schools and no libraries. High in the hills of Kentucky, roads were often just creek beds or rough trails. A bookwoman would travel by horse or mule the same arduous route every 2 weeks, carrying a load of books, in good weather and in bad. Definitely seeing a lot of connections from not only the video, but as well as the book. To show their gratitude for what came free as air, a family might make a gift from garden vegetables, wildflowers, berries, or cherished recipes passed down through generations. Do you remember what Cal's mom did at the end to thank the bookwoman? While there were a few men among the pack horse librarians, the jobs were mainly filled by women in a time when most people felt that a woman's work was in the home. The bookwomen were remarkable in their resilience and their dedication. They were paid very little, but they were proud of what they did, bringing the outside world to the people of Appalachia and sometimes making readers out of those who had never seen much use for chicken scratch. In Kentucky, creek beds and trails eventually became roads. Horses and mules gave way to the kinds of bookmobiles that still exist today. All across the country, dedicated librarians continue to bring books to folks who need them. And it says the following resources will help you learn more about what kind of about the kind of book woman portrayed in these pages. So I definitely see a lot of connections between the story, the video, and the author's note. And let's just take a look at two specific words from the author's note. One was arduous, and then the other was chicken scratch. So if I go back and I reread the sentence where arduous was, it says a bookwoman would travel by horse or by mule, the same arduous route every 2 weeks, carrying a load of books in good weather and in bad. So knowing what we know about the area and knowing that, if you're on a horse, you're not protected from the weather, these were remote, hard to reach places, we can use context clues to help us figure out that arduous means difficult, right? We can see, the horse is trying to get up, these steep hills and through bad weather. So they were difficult routes to travel. And then chicken scratch is something that we also heard in the book in Cal saying, it's just chicken scratch to me. I don't have use for that chicken scratch. And chicken scratch is just very hard to read handwriting or just hard to read. You can't make out what it says. And of course, to him, because at that time he couldn't read, it was hard for him to read and understand what it was saying. All right, so if we kind of compare, there are quite a bit of connections between what actually happened in the text and between the author's note. So again, just like Tomas and the Biblioburo, this book is based on a true thing that happened, but this was using a fictional, a made up character and family to tell about, in a story, something that really did happen. All right, so we can see, I think of the video with the book women coming and reading to the people, kind of reminds me of, Cal at first not knowing how to read and then wanting to learn how to read. I make the connection with the author's note saying that people would make them small treats as a thank you, and traveling through all the seasons. That was something we saw in all three places. So it's just always good as a reader to make connections between different things that you're reading and, expand or, learn more about different topics. And, kind of the more you know about different things, the better you can understand what you're reading. And it helps to give a little background. All right. So that was the author's note and the video about the pack horse librarians. So the next part of this lesson and what you're going to do when you're finished watching this video is participate in a virtual Socratic seminar. So for this Socratic seminar, you may remember in the past, you had been given a question and asked to prepare and then come to class and discuss with your classmates. Today, we're going to try a different way of participating in a Socratic seminar by using a Padlet. So you maybe remember that we had used Padlets in the beginning of the year. And the Padlet allows you to type a response. And actually, I think you can record and do some other things, but we'll just type our responses for today. And then the rest of the class, kind of like Flipgrid, the rest of the class is able to see what you have written. So we want to be focusing on answering the question, how does the pack horse librarian change life for Cal? That is our big question that we want to answer in the Socratic seminar. Okay, so how does the pack horse librarian change life for Cal? Okay, and that's what we want to focus on. So feel free to look back through the book and try your best to use evidence from the text, so details from the text to support your answer, right? To kind of prove and say, hey, I know this is one way that he changed Cal's life because I can see, the text shows me or tells me that. So just kind of keep that in mind. I know this is all, new stuff for us, and you've been doing a great job. So keep up the great work, but try to think about something specific from the text that you can point to say, hey, I know this is true because. So, how does the pack horse librarian change life for Cal? Okay, so we're going to think about answering that question, and then just to kind of remind you how to do a Padlet, there will be a link in this activity, and you'll tap on that link and it will take you to your class's Padlet. And Mrs. Norris's class will look like this, but it says, answer the following question. How does the pack horse librarian change life for Cal? And then you can use the sentence frame. The pack horse librarian changed life for Cal by, to write a complete sentence. So if you remember, you would just come down here, tap on the plus sign. It will pull up a little box for you to type in. If you could just put your name as the title, so then we can see, the teachers and the classmates can see who's written the answer. You can just use your first name and last initial, and then you can start answering your question here. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say about how the pack horse librarian changed life for Cal. Okay, so let us know if you have any questions, and we can't wait to see your responses for the Socratic seminar. And as you're going on to Padlet, and if you see some of your classmates' responses, feel free to read them. We encourage you to read them and see if you agree with them, or if you disagree or you thought something else, because that's what this is all about, right? Talking to each other, learning from each other, and can't wait to hear what you have to say. All right. So thanks so much, and we'll see everybody soon.